Saturday morning at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern. It is truly intelligent media for the politically aware.
Oscar's freeze. That's your cerebral cortex looking for an answer it doesn't have.
See? Even your brain knows you're screwed.
Your body's filling with adrenaline right now, whether you know it or not. Your heart's beating fast. It's getting a little harder to breathe. The neurobiological system is telling it to run, but your knees are too weak to move.
Fear is not real. The only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It is a product of our imagination, causing us to fear things that do not at present and may not ever exist. That is near insanity. Do not misunderstand me. Danger is very real, but fear is a choice. We are all telling ourselves a story.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. 100% listener-supported radio. Reporting the danger. Unafraid. Right here, where information never sleeps. Revolution Radio! The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of The Story Behind the Story. Yes, folks, oh my goodness, we have a treat for you tonight. Oh yeah, we're going to set some people's ears ablazing tonight, I promise you. And if you got emails that you want to send that are negative, don't bother. I'm not going to open them, okay? I have enough negativism in my life now. You know, we've been doing this show for well over 20 years. We have golly, we've done nothing, ladies and gentlemen, but broadcast truth. Simple as that. 3 weeks after September 11th, as many of you know, I was broadcasting live, and the FCC shut me down on a live radio broadcast. Why? Because we were telling the truth about what happened on September 11th. People don't want to hear the truth sometimes, folks. And I'm going to bring you a lot of truth tonight, I guarantee you. My guest tonight is Dr. Cynthia McKinney. Yes, the same Cynthia McKinney that you may have heard that created such a stir as yes, the first African-American woman from the Deep South to be elected to the House of Representatives. And as a Democrat, yes, but now she's kind of left the folds of the Democratic Party, and we're going to get into that reasons a little bit, and actually ran for president as the presidential choice for the Green Party candidate. And without further ado, let me introduce to you, listeners of The Story Behind the Story, Dr. Cynthia McKinney from the great state of Georgia. Cynthia, golly, it's a pleasure to have you on the show tonight.
Well, I'm very happy to have been invited to come and join you for, And I would just call this like a informal chat, you know? And so I'm happy to be with you.
You know, reviewing your curriculum vitae, your CV, Cynthia, I got to say, I got to just tip my hat off to you for your honesty, for your vigor. You know, whether you're a Democrat or Republican or independent, what you've done in the time you were in office, I got to tell you, you represented it. This is my view, okay? This is my opinion. You represented your constituency first and foremost, and didn't play politics, and that doesn't sit well sometimes. But you concur with that?
I absolutely would. And, you know, the district that I represented was a mix of suburban, urban, and rural Georgia. And so, as a strictly urban person, I had a lot of learning to do. And I also had a lot of convincing to do because, quite frankly, you know, people say, well, you know, she's that city girl and she doesn't really care about us. So there was that urban rural divide. There were many divides that I had to cross. And eventually I was able to do that to the point where one mayor whispered in my ear, you even brought out the Klan. Because it was like, I should have said it out loud, I guess, but that I had even brought out the Klan. After my victory, what we did was we organized a unity tour. And so I went into every nook and cranny of the district. There were some people who had said that no member of Congress had ever walked the streets of their county, the whole county. No member of Congress had ever been there to visit them. And I went into every county. I wanted to make sure that my constituents understood that I was there for them. I understood my role. And so I was to represent them and be their representative, which meant that I had to know what their issues were. And so whether it was drought with the farmers or toxic contamination with people who lived in a abandoned, sort of depressed, neglected part of town in the urban setting, it really didn't matter to me. I traversed all of that in order to represent my constituents. But now here's the thing. Since your tagline is the story behind the story, the truth behind the story, here's the thing is that really you're not expected when you get elected to Congress anyway, to represent your constituents. You're expected to collect your membership card in the club, and your new membership card, because now you're a member of a new club. And you're expected to represent the interests, first and foremost, of the club and the funders of the club. And to the extent now that the public doesn't have very much input into public policy making, certainly not very much input into legislation, the legislation generally by and large is drafted by special interests. And it is those special interests now that hold our elected representatives hostage. What we've got to do is eliminate that barrier that now exists between the constituency and the representatives. We've got to eliminate that entire class. Otherwise, we will never get our government back, because right now the government is in the hands of somebody else, not we the people.
Well said. Yeah, that's exactly why I wanted to have you on as a guest on the show. I've been talking about this for, golly, at least 15 years, as Alex can attest, and reviewing what your work has been and continues to be. We are very definitely on the same page with that, Dr. McKinney. And I got to tell you, I got a list of questions I need to ask of you. First of all, have you had the occasion to to read Muammar Gaddafi's Green Book, the late Muammar Gaddafi's Green Book. He
Well,
outlines.
actually, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say he outlines exactly the problem with the so-called democracy, because it eventually will always devolve, as he puts it so well in his Green Book, into just a fascist state run by special interests. Okay, and then that's exactly what we see happening. And the problem is, 95% of American people are just too dumbed down to even see it. They don't. They're brainwashing to believing it is what it is. And anybody that tries to wake them up, they kind of look at you like you're some kind of conspiracy theory nutcase, actually believing in something called the deep state. Okay, I do this. I've gone through this myself all the time till I get tired of trying to wake people up. So, what is the solution? We identified the problem. You did that so very eloquently. What do you think is the solution to this?
Well, I've done a ton of interviews throughout my political life, which precedes being elected to office. And I have to say that you are the very first person, and this is like spanning 20 years, to mention the Green Book to me. Now, I am truly impressed. I teach the Green Book to my students. In the section of the political science course that I teach on political systems and varying political systems, one of them that I teach is direct democracy. And you are absolutely right. I do believe that it is not an accident that the very first thing that was destroyed after the Obama-Clinton takeover of Libya was the Green Books that were given out free of charge in the embassy. And you are absolutely right that the Green Book correctly describes the problems with what I call indirect democracy. And in fact, this is the way I explain it to my students. I say, you are a sovereign individual. You want to protect your sovereignty at all costs. And so your sovereignty represents your liberty, your freedom, and ultimately your dignity. So you want to protect your sovereignty, and yet you're told that the form of government that requires you to surrender your sovereignty to someone else, and then you have to go and beg them to pave your roads, to clean your water, to make sure your air is breathable. You have to go to them and beg them to represent you. And so now there's an inherent deficiency in that, because lurking, and then I get into the special interests that are lurking behind the scenes, also influencing your representative. So doesn't it make more sense in the end for you to retain your sovereignty and you directly make public policy? And when we discuss direct democracy, I haven't heard anyone to think differently that, well, that it might be hard to implement. Of course, in Libya, there were many different points of entry so that the input could be either from the tribe, everyone had membership in a tribe, there were over 200 tribes, or it was at your place of employment, but everyone had a point of entry in order to decide on the policy. When I went to Libya, they were trying to decide what were they going to subsidize with the oil revenues. Were they going to subsidize the price of gasoline, which everyone had a car, or were they going to further subsidize education? And I left Libya before the results were in, but I was there when they were actually, sort of canvassing and making the decision. So direct democracy, I believe, is definitely the way to go. And you've got direct democracy. Nigel Farage is now dedicated KIP to direct democracy. You've got direct
peacefully. I mean, it's a matter of education. I know that you teach political science.
Libya before the results were in, but I was there when they were actually, sort of canvassing and making the decision. So direct democracy, I believe, is definitely the way to go. And you've got direct democracy. Nigel Farage is now dedicated KIP to direct democracy. You've got direct democracy parties in Europe. And of course, direct democracy is practiced in Switzerland, sorry. So direct democracy is not a new concept, but it certainly, I believe, is a concept that we all should explore and eventually adopt.
Yeah, and hopefully it can be done peacefully. I mean, it's a matter of education. I know that you teach political science, and you're right on point with it. You've been there. You've been to Libya. I have not had the privilege, but I got to tell you, studying what was happening in Libya, despite all of the propaganda put out by the major mainstream media ad nauseum, okay, continue to just amaze me. The average person walking the street, you talk first thing about Gaddafi, oh, the mad dog dictator, but no, he's not that at all. It's propaganda and brainwashing that's going on. Have you ever come across the Viktor Ostrovsky's 2 books on the Mossad operations, specifically by way of deception? Amazing
You
book.
are on it. You are on it. All I can say is just let me wring my hands in sheer ecstasy. Oh my goodness. You're absolutely right. Yes, I've read Viktor Ostrovsky, and I mean, the revelations are just amazing.
And that leads me to the next question. I got to focus on this because it's where people start really giving me hate mail because of the level of of propaganda that we have in this country. Okay, that I'm some kind of a neo-Nazi anti-Semite when I just tell the truth. Oh, come on, people, listen. I was stunned when you revealed that you had to sign that loyalty oath as a member of Congress to a foreign country called Israel. I find that just hard to fathom.
It's not so hard to fathom. I absolutely refuse to sign it. And so now what I just did, just a couple of days ago before the monstrosity of an election, special election that took place in my home state of Georgia, the John Ossoff, Karen Handel race that just took place. And I had been asked to provide some commentary during the election day about the $50 million. I mean, it's just outrageous. It's just over the top. Well, anyway, I went to the website of both Karen Handel and John Ossoff, and what I learned was that there was one winner in that election. And I'm not talking about Karen Handel, even though she did prevail in the vote. But if you go to those two websites, you will see almost verbatim the same language when it comes to Israel. From John Ossoff, from Karen Handel. So now, who really won on June 20th, on Tuesday, June 20th? Who really won? I can tell you who lost, and that's the people who expect integrity and independence from their government.
Well, see, that's what really has to happen in this country to have people wake up, whether you're Christian or a non-believer or what have you. If we just look at the history of America's involvement with this nation state of Israel and look at what's being said in the news about Russia meddling, et cetera, in the elections, it's ridiculous, because what if you had the same loyalty oath to Russia or China or whatever? I mean, Americans would scream about that, wouldn't they? But yet Israel gets away with it. It's crazy to me.
Well, after I blew the whistle on the pledge, because the pledge was an actual physical piece of paper that they expected you to sign. So after I blew the whistle on that, then what they did was they changed the methodology. But the bottom line is the same. And that's why you see that similar language on Karen Handel's website. You see the similar language on John Ossoff's website. That's just sort of the way it is now. And the very thing that needs to change.
Well, yes, indeed. You look at really the ISIS fighters, the Arab Spring. You look at all the history of what's gone on in the Middle East, okay, since September 11th, and it's all about expanding Greater Israel. I mean, that's the bottom line of why we're over there. Who really was the benefactor of September 11th? Well, it's Benjamin Netanyahu and the state of Israel. Netanyahu even said that Israel benefited greatly from the effects of September 11th. Well, hello. The reason is, again, you look at what Gaddafi was doing. What a novel concept to take a national resource, the oil underneath the sands of Libya, and give the citizens the benefit of it. Now, why can't we do that in America? You've got incredible national resources here in America that doesn't belong to ExxonMobil or Standard Oil. It belongs to we the people, I submit. Okay? Why should they be allowed to take the Bakken oil fields, put all those billions of barrels of oil on tankers and ship it to China and make profits from the Chinese trade, and the American people don't even understand why? It's nuts to me, Cynthia. It really is. It doesn't make sense.
Well, I just posted something on my Facebook page, which I need to take a look at it and see. But it was about misery. How did I have that? It was like profit is generated from human misery, kind of, the pathetic state that we're in now, where a small group of people can make a whole lot of money while a whole lot of other people are being mistreated.
It's time for a free state of Jones, a free state of McKinney. How about that?
Yes. Yes. You know what? I saw that and I love it. I absolutely, yes. Free state of Jones. And the other thing
great story.
Yeah, the other thing I want to mention is how did we get into all of this fix is that we've got neoliberalism on steroids, right? And the neoliberalism, I believe, will encourage the creation of an American spring, like the Arab Spring, that an American spring, because the special interests are so dug in, and they don't care about the people of the U.S. They only care about their interests, their goals, their vision, their mission, not willing to participate in the tug of war, the art of compromise that, is dictated by a political process. No, that's not what they want. Sheer brutality. And so if it means fighting your fellow American in order to protect their special interests, then I believe they will do that. And so we have to guard against being manipulated into fighting each other. And that's why I have been preaching for a long time about Blacks and whites coming together, everybody in between, let's come together. Christian identity, militia, Ku Klux Klan, let's come together. Let's do all of this coming together that we can. And just in the last few days, I had the opportunity to operationalize it by actually doing it. And that is the project that Robert David Steele, he's former CIA, actually started, founded, and I latched onto it because I thought, what a wonderful role model maybe we could become. He's alt-right or populist right, or, just plain right. I'm alt-left, populist left, or just plain left. And I'm Black, he's white. So if we can work together, we can come together, we can talk to each other and try and figure out how we can make the country better. Isn't that wonderful for everybody? So that's what we started to do. And that's what we've been at this now. It's called #Unrig Summer of Peace. And we've been at it for about 3 days. And so far, it's been fabulous.
Well, it needs to happen. Hats off to you. Kudos again. But yeah, going back to that movie we referenced, the Free State of Jones. You have so many good principles espoused by Newton Knight, not a fictional character, an actual character of history from your neck of the woods in the Deep South. What he did was exactly what you're talking about here. He was kind of forced into the position of becoming one with the runaway slaves in the swamp. But he sits there and he puts out a basic declaration of rights, you see, what every person should agree with. I mean, it's simple. Unless you're the big plantation boss that wants to just slave away other people and put harnesses on them. And that's what's happening. That's the bottom line here. Whether you're a Democrat or Republican or whatever, it's an American issue. And there's going to come a time where you said it best, there's going to come a time where America has got to realize, hey, this system isn't working. It's broken. The rich are getting richer and richer and richer. The 5% are getting richer and richer and richer. And the 95% are getting less and less able to make ends meet. And it's got to stop.
That's absolutely right. And so that's why I believe there was such resonance around the country when Trump said that the system is rigged. And certainly got my attention, particularly when after he said that, and he continued to talk about the regime change wars, because my ultimate objective would be that I am anti-war, pro-peace, and I really understand that the only way that we can arrive at a truly peaceful state or truly peaceful condition is for us to forego the lies, because you can't have peace built on lies, and you have to institute justice, real justice, because you can't have peace based on injustice. So you need truth, justice in order to get peace. And then I believe that peace will give us the dignity, the ability, the human dignity as well as earth dignity, which sustains us. And then we're living in this world where I respect you right from the start. And it's nothing that you have to prove to me, that we are one with each other in purpose and in mission. And isn't that beautiful? Isn't that even a beautiful thought? That you and I working together, revealing the truth behind the story, so that then people can arrive in a different place, which would be their own truth. And then together we go toward justice, peace, and dignity. I just think it's a marvelous model for us to try and implement any way we can. But instead, what I got in my email, this is what made me start thinking. I received an email in my inbox that's offering, I believe it was like $150 a month for a resistance summer. You join this outfit and you can get $150 a month, just doing whatever you're told to do as part of the resistance. And I thought about it for a moment and I said, well, if we really care about the causes that we say are important to us, we do them in our spare time. We figure out how to make money off of our passions. And so we don't need, say, George Soros to finance our interest in this issue. Our interest preceded George Soros's $150 a month through one of his many different, it's 11 o'clock, 503 operations. So I just think that we have to really open our eyes. And that's why your show is really important, to get to the truth that's behind the story, because we get headlines, we're bombarded with headlines. Half of the headlines are, well, now we've got this term fake news. So we've got deep state, we've got fake news. So now all of a sudden, the things that I'm talking about, the things that literally got me kicked out of Congress, are common parlance today. So I think this is fabulous, but sometimes I wish that, I was not 20 years ahead of my time. Now it's 17 years later, and people are saying, yeah, I really believed all that stuff about you. And now I'm really understanding that, what you were trying to do. And so, but thank goodness that the veil has been pulled off, or the mask has been pulled off of the deceptive media. And now people are beginning to wake up and understand just exactly the power is within us. And the only way we can really exercise that power is to come together.
It has to happen. Absolutely. That's why we wanted to have you on the show so badly, to just explain what's going on in your life. You've been, it's amazing, Dr. McKinney. I might call you Dr. Cynthia.
I worked hard for that PhD, and I have the student loans to show for it. But you don't have to call me doctor. I love it, for the first, but please just call me Cynthia. We're in the living room and we're just having our chat.
We're having a really good chat. I'm enjoying this immensely. The time is flying by. We're a half hour into this interview already. And golly, I wanted to have Alex, who's really the architect of this interview. He's my co-host and does a great job. He's sitting there. I'm sure he's probably got some things he wants to interject at this point.
I'm
Alex,
here.
come on board. What do you have to say about things so far?
Well, I'm grinning ear to ear at this conversation because I knew from the get-go that bringing you two together would be fireworks, and I was right. I'm so happy that this is happening. Dr. McKinney, Cynthia, you're doing so much work for this unrigged thing, and I did catch the Robert David Steele panel that you were on the other day. And I've also been following a little bit more of him, and I just think now is maybe a good time to interject this comment that he made regarding Mossad as it pertains to this Seth Rich investigation that we've all been focusing on. And he seems to feel that he was an operative of Mossad, intentionally providing the links so as to throw Hillary under the bus. Which has been sort of my suspicion all along. I don't know.
Well, I only saw that a couple of days ago, and I have not had the opportunity to really talk to Robert. We are trying to organize the two of us going to East St. Louis on July 3rd. And if that actually works out, and then we would sort of officially, that would be the first time we will have appeared together physically, and we would have the opportunity to kick off Unrig, #Unrig. I would get a chance to query him on several points that he has made. But now that's interesting that you say that you also had that as a suspicion. That's very interesting.
Yes, ma'am. Because I'm sorry. Keep going.
No. I want to hear from you because I had never thought about that.
Well, it just came from his own comments and this hired spokesperson that the family got, and doing the 411 on that guy, and then just hearing his own statements about being a good Jewish boy and having traditional. I forget the exact words that he used, but they seem to sort of raise a little red flag for me. And then when we did the looking into of this this spokesperson that they got to sort of change the storyline around, that prompted some further looking into, and I've been following this investigative trail as it happens on these channel networks. I don't know if you're aware of these bulletin board systems where people post anonymously, and a lot of these pieces of evidence and these testimonies are collected in real time. So there's a group dedicated to this particular investigation, and with the nature of the event, the murder itself, and then the two Mexicans that were killed the following day in Myrtle Beach. There's just a lot of things that make me go, that could be right. That could be right.
Well, there's definitely a lot of stuff to make you go, And the Seth Rich murder, I think they just made an announcement that there were body cams of the police officers. Was that? Did you hear that?
I have not heard that. I have not checked into it in the last couple days for work-related reasons, and so this is really the first kind of tidbit that I've gotten into lately. But since it does appear to come from David Robert Steele, I thought I'd go ahead and pose it to you and see if you'd heard anything about that.
Oh yeah, no. He says a lot of things that
okay.
I haven't. But that's a very interesting. I've been following George Webb and the Jason Goodman, I believe is his last name, Crowdsource the Truth. So I've been following them, but I work every day, so it's really hard for me to follow very closely, like every breaking story. I usually get it. Some stories I get ahead of time because I'm in Asia, and so I'm awake during the sleeping hours, and so I can get those stories fast and quickly because they're breaking right then. But the other things takes me a while to get caught up on. But I have been following the Seth Rich situation, which started out as a Monica Peterson, which started out as an Eric Braverman. And so
Exactly.
there's lots of questions. That's for sure. There's lots of questions.
I also wanted to just suggest that if and when you meet Mr. Steele in St. Louis, I believe he was CIA for a period of time, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so
yes.
he is probably then very familiar with my late uncle, who was also CIA, the late Samuel Adams. He passed away in 1988, and he wrote a book called War of Numbers. And upon his passing, a group of people, friends of his, formed what's called the Sam Adams Foundation, and they began giving grants to folks like Sybil Edmonds and Ed Snowden, and then finally Julian Assange. And in a way, it kind of kickstarted WikiLeaks, in my humble opinion. So I just feel like there's a small family connection there. I just wanted to sort of toot my own horn about that.
Well, I'm glad you tooted your horn, because then I will definitely look up Samuel Adams and War of Numbers. And at the same time, I have to thank the foundation for financing Sybil and Julian and the Ed Snowden, because these are very important people who the whistleblowing that they did is important for us to have an understanding of that truth behind the story.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Again, thank you so much for coming on the show. I didn't realize that you were communicating all the way from Asia. So it's morning time to you.
Yes, actually, and I have been doing interviews all morning this morning as the people in the Western Hemisphere put themselves to bed. I am starting a new day.
Fantastic.
Well, tell us how good of a day it's going to be, so we can know if we can sleep in or not.
Yes.
Let us know.
You can sleep well tonight, because today is marvelous.
It's a beautiful day. Oh, golly, Alex, the Seth Rich situation is, again, as we go back to Ostrovsky's revelations and his two incredible books. You see, this is how it is. The logo, the motto of the Mossad is by way of deception, and more than anything else, this is what we have to look for. Why would they want the dumpster, the Trumpster, in there? And I don't know if you happen to catch a couple of my shows where I exposed this right after the election, Cynthia. The states in which he had Trump had his sound bites to say it's all one big fix, it's all rigged, folks, just happened to be the same states, that were such important swing states. The Wisconsin sound bites, the Michigan sound bites, the Pennsylvania sound bites. And there's a great website called Black Box Voting, okay, where you can go and
I know Bev Harris very well, because of course I had my own problems down in Georgia with those black boxes that they call electronic voting machines.
Well, what I've done with Harris, and I wanted to have her on as a guest on the show, but I quote extensively from her work, because it's so important to realize, follow the paper trail, follow the money trail, and you see it goes right back to Mossad operatives and this rogue state of Israel. I got to tell you, that's who funds it. Now, if you have Trump's interests, which he's completely signed off, completely. I mean, like Steele said just recently, that Tillerson is just rubber stamping Israel's agenda. That's what the Secretary of State is doing by design, not by accident, by design. You look at what's going on with the power brokers, the let's call it what it is. It's the Jewish mafia. The Jewish mob runs New York and runs so much of what we call the deep state. That's really the synonymous to me with the deep state. You see how they do it, how they manipulate. It has to be, I'm no Hillary Clinton fan either. Don't get me wrong there. She's a crook and she's just evil, but she had to be totally shell shocked to realize that she got double dealed. She got trumped. I mean, it's no accident that she was going to, had this great celebration party to break the roof raise the roof, so to speak, and literally and figuratively, right, with her celebration, and to see that it it switched so subtly, she can't come out on the air and say, "Hey, the Mossad fixed it." She can't say that. She'll be stopped and shut down like Seth Rich. But she knows.
Well, now Hillary Clinton knows how I felt when they did the same thing to me and booted me out of Congress. So
Amen.
I would just say what goes around comes around. They call it karma, baby. And so you need to live a life as an honest human being, and that's what you will get.
I keep drawing parallels to the Cheka of the ex-Soviet Union, the Bolshevik party. They had scam elections all the way during the Cold War years. The Russians, the Soviet people, thought they were electing who they want to represent them, but it was all controlled. And that's exactly what's been happening here since at least Eisenhower. I mean, this stuff has been so manipulated. We have no election. It's all an appointment. There's no accident anymore. It's an appointment. Now, I want to get your opinion on Donald Trump. What do you think is going to happen with him, in your opinion? I got to hear that from you.
Well, Paul Craig Roberts and I, oh man, do we have a beautiful dance going on. I don't know if it's the tango or if it's the two-step or if it's the waltz, but I just love that man. And he just recently said that it was over in terms of the promise of the Trump administration, that basically charting a new independent path for the United States. It's over. He has become a Zionist puppet. And that to me is, I guess you could say it's predictable, but I remember watching a video that was done by a Georgia Republican, black, I think his name is Davidson. I can't remember his name. Anyway, he did this video and he was talking about, I don't say like bad words or anything like that. My mother raised me to be a genteel Southern girl. But he was talking about how big, I'll say it in Spanish, how big Trump's cojones, I guess, were.
Yes.
And so I thought that was accurate, and maybe your cojones got bigger with the more billions that you had. Maybe, I don't know. So I'm thinking, yeah, this guy is telling it, yeah. And I have lost a lot of respect for a lot of political men, because what I have seen is them become shrinking violets and them lose whatever cojones they have. They lose them. They shrivel up. They become cowards. And, that's sort of like the worst thing in the world for me to see somebody literally become a coward that I kind of looked up to. And that's what I see Trump becoming. And so I've been tweeting recently that maybe Kissinger showed the POTUS, President Kennedy's brain, and said, "You're next if you don't get in line," because clearly something has happened, or either he was just lying the whole time. I don't know. But the disappointment is huge because the expectation of someone with the cojones to actually stand up to that faction of the deep state that is bent on wrecking the United States, well, they shriveled up now. And he's become just
Cynthia,
the rest of them.
unless Cynthia, it's all a facade, Wizard of Oz type of facade from the very beginning, and that's what I've been maintaining.
Yes.
That
Yes.
Trump has been groomed from this at least as early as the 1990s. I've been following this. He's been groomed for this position. Uh, and I've written extensively about this. A lot of things I haven't published because it's just I don't think people are ready for it. Okay, but you look at there's a religious aspect of this that ties in again to biblical prophecy. This is all against conjecture and speculation at this point, but there is in fact a group of sages, of rabbis in Jerusalem that have been following the Talmudic teachings of their coming Ben Berechiah, their great one that will rescue and bring Israel to basically world power and world domination as their promised Messiah. They rejected Jesus of Nazareth because he wasn't politically and war motivated. So they rejected his message of peace, and they're looking for this so-called Ben Berechiah, great one, to come and to basically rebuild the temple and to sit as emperor over all in the temple. Now, I'm telling you, this has not received any movement at all in the controlled media. But this group of rabbis have all but crowned Donald Trump as the man to do that. I've been following this for many years, actually. You know, first of all, it's amazing how their prophecies follow the real life history of Jesus of Nazareth. His mother was Mary. Well, guess what Trump's mother's name was? Mary. There was supposed to be a celestial sign at his birth. The date of Trump's birth, there was a full lunar eclipse. All these things factor in. And where does Trump? The Mormon Church gave at his inauguration a full genealogical lineage for Trump as a gift. They've done that for everybody. They gave one to Barack Obama, but it kind of petered out. His bloodline petered out in Kenya. It was kind of sketchy. But I have it on very good authority, and I've seen parts of this genealogy that they've traced Drump, the Drump family name. Drump changed his name to Trump. The Drump family goes back to the Plantagenets of England, which trace it right back to King David himself. So you don't sell this guy short because of who the power is behind him to get him to the throne in the first place, you see. So
well, you know, I have a friend who has a PhD. He's a theological student. And he keeps telling me to read the Talmud, that I must read the Talmud. But now, do you have like a definitive version that you could link me to or something? Because I'm beginning to think that I really need to do that assignment so that I can understand more fully what some people believe is happening.
Yeah, there's a great resource. Michael Hoffman, he's up in Northern Idaho, has written a number of books exposing, because he's Jewish by bloodline, and so he was raised Jewish, and he tells the whole story. The whole Talmud Unmasked is a great resource. There's also books of Jewish mysticism called the Zohar that is basically Jewish prophecy. Tex Mars has done a great work. You can tell how great the book is because it's been banned from Amazon. You can't buy it on Amazon.
I'm going to
okay?
interject and just give you a 2-minute warning.
Okay, we're almost out of time. Golly, it's called The Holy Serpent of the Jews. You got to read that book, and it quotes extensively and weaves everything that they were talking about here, from the Talmud to the Zohar, and what they have as their plans for world domination. Okay,
Wow.
that's what I'd recommend those books to you.
Wow. What an education. Thank you so much. I'm always looking at ways to better understand the world around me, and you've given me a lot to chew on, you and Alex both, and I thank you for that.
Well, Alex, golly, it's out of time already. You got to be kidding me. We can talk
Yeah,
for
we're
5 more
down to
hours.
just over a minute left. Thank you, Dr. Cynthia McKinney, for coming on. I hope we can remain in touch and hopefully do this again sometime.
I look forward to it. Thank you so much for inviting me for this chat, and I'm going to go and do my homework, so when I come back, you will know that I have studied.
Cynthia, Dr. McKinney, do me one favor, would you please?
Sure.
Would you just travel safely and keep on keeping on, my dear? You're doing a great work. Okay?
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this has unfortunately, this has not been a live interview. This is tape recorded, and it'll be airing tomorrow. We tape this on Thursday. This will be broadcast live Friday tomorrow. Cynthia McKinney, my guest. Golly, we'll keep in touch. We'll absolutely have you back on as your schedule allows. Be safe. Be well. We'll talk later. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was a tape-recorded message from Dr. Cynthia McKinney that, as I said, was pre-taped for the Story Behind the Stories broadcast today. I apologize for the audio quality. I had a hard time understanding a lot of what she said. There's a lot of skipping, and I had a number of people text me and email me that it was hard to listen. So I blame that on the connection with Skype that she had there in her place in Asia. I believe there was not a lot of
Folks, stay tuned for a live second hour with Dr. True.
Listening to Revolution Radio at Freedom Slips.
Enjoy your extra big-ass fries.
You didn't give me no fries. I got an empty box.
Would you like another extra big-ass fries?
I said I didn't get any.
Recharge your zero.
Kids are starving.
Thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we believe in freedom of ideas, freedom of speech, but above all, we believe in freedom of existence through self-reliance. This station is 100% listener supported, and as a fundraising promotion, I have a kick-ass free gift for a $100 donation. 35,000 seeds. 25 years in the freezer. Long-term storable, 54 different varieties. So if food prices go crazy, the shit hits the fan, or if you just want to save tons of money every year by creating your own food like I do, grab our seed pack special. Just look for the banner on the homepage at freedomslips.com. Don't be a statistic. Don't be part of the problem. Be part of the solution. We need, as humans, to start taking care of ourselves and not depending on the megacorps to provide unhealthy, nasty food. Included in this package is also a DVD with 900 survival and off-grid living documents and the offline home canning, how to do everything website, all on the DVD. So when you're growing all that food, you know how to can it, store it, preserve it, etc. with all these documents. So thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I hope that you will pick up this package and start learning to be free. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps and freedom is one seed that needs to be planted.
What we doing live? It goes in the time.
Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or a computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it, I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? Well, squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the second hour of tonight's Story Behind the Story. I'm your host, Dr. A. Trudewatt. Yes, again, the first hour was a tape-recorded interview with Dr. Cynthia McKinney, taped yesterday. I got to tell you, joining me on the show tonight, the ever-present Alex Studer. We also have with us Hello, Alex. We have Major Burdock joining us as well, and I understand we're having a simulcast going on with a lot of other listeners that are tying in to the story behind the story. So a shout out to them, to Jim and his connections there. Thank you, Jim, for that. Alex, wow. I listened to that interview again. I wish the audio was a little bit better. There was that Sky breakup, as you know, but it was fairly well done as far as the audio is concerned. What a bundle of fire this Cynthia McKinney is. She's got a fire in her belly that I just gotta admire. She's doing a great job, a great work, and your
Well,
comments.
I'm so grateful. It took months literally to schedule that, and we had a failed attempt to get together a couple weeks ago, as you know. So to see it all finally go down and the way that it all happened, I'm still just beside myself. Bringing two important people together in that way. I want to give a shout out to Major Burdock because right now the show is being simulcast via the Goldwater on YouTube Live. So for anybody who may have missed any part of that interview, they can go to the Goldwater on YouTube, and there will be a link for a replay of their 2-hour broadcast of this show. So there's one source, and then of course, as I get the audio later, I'll be chopping it up and putting it up under my account on YouTube as well for anybody who wants to listen. So
Great, Alex. Thank you. Let's bring on Major Burdock. Major Burdock, how are you doing? Good to have you on the show.
Well, every day's a holiday, Dr. True. It's a real pleasure. That was some incredible stuff. I had the privilege of listening to that yesterday. What a wonderful lady. I mean, that was some insightful, some very logical thinking as well. I really enjoyed the interview.
I gotta tell you what went through my mind last night. I didn't sleep well because my mind was going a million miles an hour, thinking about the possibilities that she brought out as far as going what she called direct democracy. And I submit the time is right to do something like that. And what a wonderful tool we have to network now. We have the World Wide Web, the internet to do so. Here's my thought process. I want to get some input, and maybe we can just kind of unofficially kick this off tonight, and put our heads together, get a website going with a specific, call it whatever you want to. My idea is like calling it the free state as opposed to the deep state. Let's call it the free state, directly opposed to the deep state, which is very real. But here's my idea. Following through on that incredible movie, the Free State of Jones, the work that Newell Knight did, and reviewing his factual history that was brought out because of that movie. There's no reason why we can't replicate those concepts and ideals that everybody can resonate to, as Cynthia said so very well. But here's my idea. Call it a another party or affiliation, whatever. I think this can go great guns with momentum right now. Okay, the the concept is simply this: to put out a platform, a plank, if you will, of what needs to happen as far as our objectives and goals. And just like the concept we have with Freedom Slips Radio and Revolution Radio, we have no funding of corporate entities. We have no, we're not beholden to any corporate special interests. And that's the model that has to be done here, I submit. If you have, let's say you just start out with a million people, just a million, which is reasonably available to do if enough people can start sharing, 1 to 5 to 5 to 5 to 5, multiply it out. If these million people just would donate $1 a month to get some airtime, some advertising, to get the ball rolling, so to speak, kind of like a snowball down the hill. To have the things that Cynthia and I talked about, that espoused, to bring together the sovereign people. My friend Jim Dooley has an incredible legal mind. He can bring in the documentation how to declare sovereignty, as far as being a part of this grassroots "We the People" movement. And I believe it can go great guns into the fact that, you know what, we really don't even need, as sovereign people, to drain the swamp. We don't need the swamp. Okay? Who's to say that we can't follow exactly the model of Gaddafi's Green Book as outlined there, how to set up regional direct democracy centers? Through the internet, it's a perfect tool to do that. Okay? Yeah, there's going to be differences in opinion. There's going to be people that have ideas. That's diversity. And in the right context and the right structure, it will work. It can work. And through the Declaration of Sovereignty, the power of the courts, the power of the rule of law, comes from we the people, who grant the power of the police state, the law enforcement. That comes from us, the people, not from a separated, detached government entity. Okay, so I got to tell you, I penciled out a flow chart as to how this would work, and the funding of it would have to come through the Bitcoin structure, which is direct in competition to the Federal Reserve, which needs to be disenfranchised too. You got to have a way to have honest currency, so to speak, or which is just simply a means to facilitate trade and services. That's all the Bitcoin really is. Okay, but it's set up with its system as Mr. Rowe and I talked about last week on the show. It's brilliant, and I think it's something that let's say the time is right. But I want to get your input, Alex and Major Burdock. What do you think about such an idea?
Let me jump in on this. The other thing, aside from Bitcoin, is just trading services, and and also people that just want to. If you're talking about a donation, I right now the Goldwater is the first in line, and I will officially offer you free hosting. How about that?
Well, that's what I was hoping to hear. Absolutely, yeah, because I guess I gotta put together the platform and make sure we're all in agreement as to how it'll come together. Have you had the chance to see Frank Capra's 1930 movie Meet John Doe? That's an old classic, but my golly, it's so apropos with this discussion.
The surreal, yeah. Um, a long time ago, but I don't want to tell you the circumstances. I had a girlfriend who was into Capra, but I was into her. So, but yeah, I know I completely understand what you're saying, Dr. True.
So the whole thing about Meet John Doe is it had a grassroots swell that was unstoppable, but the problem was it was manipulated behind the scenes by some unsavory, big special interests. And so if we set it up correctly with the structure, we can eliminate that. And the genius is, to me, is what Cynthia talked about, the Green Book, and now she teaches that in her poli sci classes. That's a genius book. As I read that and reread it, I read it probably a dozen times, and I'm sitting. I read it critically, trying to pick it apart, say this one won't work. Why was this won't work this way? And as you really analyze it, it works, as Cynthia said, with the most incredible system in Libya. We have 200 individual tribes with their own agendas, and it worked for them. it comes together. She sees that it worked too. That's why she was saying, nobody's ever talked to me about the Green Book, but it's genius. It truly is.
And thankfully, for anybody listening who wants to get their hands on the Green Book by Muammar Gaddafi, it's fairly easy to find for free in PDF format online if you're industrious enough.
Absolutely. Yes. So, Alex, what do you think? What's your thoughts?
Um, I'm impressed. I'm behind it 100%. You have all of my support in any way that I can throw at it, and I would suggest that Major Burdock is probably the most competent person available to assist with any kind of hosting or any other web-related need for that sort of a project. So I believe you're in good hands for a good start.
Okay, well, I will commit to doing the platform, bouncing it off both of you, and any input that you have from other parties. I mean, this is direct democracy, right? You got to have input from all parties.
I would just step in on this. Yeah, absolutely. The whole point is that you need everybody's point of view. And so it needs to be complete, unfettered, uncensored access. And so we're as close as it gets to that. I like to call us the last bastion of truth on the internet. We're also called the most vile website on the internet. Some of the image boards that are put up, but the point is that we are committed to having everyone, no matter what their opinion is, speak their mind. And, unless, of course, they're threatening a child or threatening a life or doing a copyright violation. Those are pretty much the only three rules. So we're 5 by 5, and you'd be surprised to see what our team. We actually have everybody. We're trying to find somebody from Antarctica, because we've got everyone. Our team has one person from every single continent working for us now, and I don't know how many languages we cover, how many disabilities we cover, how many abilities we cover. But maybe we can find somebody from Antarctica. That's the big goal.
Well, I challenge you to do so, because I don't believe Antarctica to be a continent, and we've had this discussion before.
Bringing this up though, I actually am, and I wanted to bring this up. We are looking for somebody in prison, somebody who's incarcerated who wants to write for us. So we do have jobs open for writers who are in prison right now. If anyone knows somebody who writes in prison, who has the ability to write opinion pieces, we can take mail to the U.S. and have it faxed over or have it scanned. If they have internet access, but we really do want to get the opinion of people who are incarcerated right now, for whatever reason. So it really is everyone's opinion. That's where we're coming from.
Okay, well, I gotta start working on it. Some of the basic platforms that I was thinking about. First of all, the first pillar or plank has got to be voter reform. I mean, this has got to be a grassroots swell. Understanding what Cynthia went through. First of all, her district was called gerrymandered. Thought they could take her out that way by putting more Republican type of wealth into her district. That backfired because she hit the pavement and worked it and got people to follow her way of thinking. She did a very good job with that. When that gerrymandering didn't work, then the black box issue came in, and very strange anomalies happened with the vote count. So, I mean, you go back again to what happened in that movie, the Free State of Jones. The first step, they had to have an honest election, and that was so poignant in that whole section. How the African American people there just had such a struggle to get their vote recognized as a Republican ticket. See, it's simple. Again, following the blueprint of Gaddafi, you have areas, okay, that are set out as district. You have people that are honorable and honest to keep locks on those ballots. There's nothing electronic at all. There's a paper trail. That's got to happen to get this country back. You've got to have the direct democracy. The integrity of the vote is paramount, and that's got to change.
Right, and one little detail that we missed when we talked about black box voting in the recorded interview that we just heard in the first hour that we actually had last night. ES&S Voting Systems of Omaha, Nebraska. Who are they owned by, and what are their ulterior motives for providing backdoor access into electronic voting machines?
It goes back into that international law firm Greenberg, which is clearly a Mossad front to recruit Sayanim, the individual agents.
Now,
of which
you just sent me an email regarding this. If I might read part of that.
Go ahead, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
so folks, we're on the subject of Mossad, and I brought it up with Cynthia. My suspicions, which are shared, and they were prompted originally by some comments that True made to me beforehand, and basically we just heard David Robert Steele, make a comment the other day that he thinks maybe Seth Rich was a Mossad operative in providing those links to Julian Assange so as to intentionally throw Hillary under the bus. So I look at my email, and True has sent me that, Alex, here's a breakthrough. Number one, Seth Rich, while at Creighton University in Omaha, was employed for 2 years by the international Jewish law firm Greenberg, Quinlan, and Rossner. One of their primary tasks is to recruit and direct Sayanim moles for the Mossad. Sayanim is the name for civilian Mossad operatives who are compelled to do so, whatever is needed for the misplaced promotion and sanctity of Israel. Number two. Go ahead.
Let me just jump in on that number one point. That is brought out in great detail in Victor Ostrovsky's book, The Remains of Disruption, because he shows in his book there's not a lot of Mossad agents. There's just not a lot because they have such an intricately woven network of Sayanim. Idealistic, young Jewish people that will do anything, literally lay their life down if needed, on orders of the Mossad. That's their network. And so he lays this out so well and whistle blows it, okay, in his book. And Ostrovsky is an ex-Mossad agent, and this is well documented. So there we go. I just had to throw that in to explain.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
And I believe these Ostrowski books are also available in PDF format if you hunt well enough.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, number two, Maureen White, finance chairwoman for the DNC in Washington, is a blood relative of Stanley Greenberg, president of Greenberg, Quinlan, and Rosner. Number three, Seth Rich, as a computer research data associate for the DNC, was likely recruited by Ms. White as a trusted Sayanim agent. Number four, Sandy Hook actors calling themselves Nick and Laura Phelps are in reality blood relatives of Stanley Greenberg. How creepy is that connection? And I'm just going to pause right here because this is something that is still highly controversial amongst the research community as to whether or not Sandy Hook was real or fake. Even AJ went on NBC recently and in his little expose completely served to discredit the Sandy Hoax truth movement. Well, I, for one, believe very strongly it was a staged psyop involving crisis actors, that no one died. So does Jim Fetzer, who's an author and has written many books over at moonrockbooks.com on this very subject. And there's also a documentary on YouTube you can see right now. It's called We Need to Talk About Sandy Hook. So I will just say right and foremost, yeah, these crisis actors are real. We've been talking about it for years on this show. And then finally, number five, from Dr. True's email, Seth Rich leaked documents to Assange and WikiLeaks, and he was killed for his efforts. Worms and miscreants all. And then he's got this link to this YouTube video of these Sandy Hook's crisis actors that I've been researching for years.
Yeah, the Phelps couple, that's not their name. It's clearly the same guy, the same couple, clearly. And look at other researchers have documented their surname is Greenberg, and they are tied into the Omaha, Nebraska Greenberg, which by the way, in Ostrovsky's book, he talks about this. He doesn't name it by name in his book, but he talks about the primary organizer of the Cyanim in Canada, where he's a Canadian resident at first. He's living in America now, but worldwide is this international law firm. I submit it's Greenberg's law firm. It would make complete sense. That's who it would be.
And so finally, and this all came in response because I sent you a link that there's a new piece out, I guess, on ABC or whatever, that says a group from George Washington University graduate students calling themselves the Profiling Project are challenging the party line story on the Seth Rich murder. They're saying no, it was not a botched robbery, and it was a profiled murder. And
yeah, I like they're forensic psychologists students. That's kind of amazing. I ought to put them in touch with with our friend Dr. Nuccitelli there in New York. I mean, that would be an interesting conversation for sure. But see, again, it's psychological operations. It's psyops, and as Cynthia said so well in the first hour, if you don't have honor and integrity, there is no justice. You see, and this individual, this young Jewish Jesuit, he calls himself by his own name, going to the Jesuit school Creighton. He says, I'm a Jewish Jesuit." He called himself. Very idealistic young man working to hopefully make a difference in the DNC on orders from above, did what he had to do. I can completely concur with Mr. Steele's analysis of it. I have to say, that makes the most sense of anything, that he was given the assignment by the powers that be on the high daisy chain of Bibi Netanyahu's network to throw Hitler under the bus as much as possible. You talk about meddling, okay? Talk about the Russians have nothing on these guys.
yeah, I don't think it was Russia, folks.
And so, who controls the media? See, that's the thing. And when you talk about these things, and Cynthia understands that because she let the chips fall where they may, and she got blackballed. No pun intended. She got really, she was just thrown out on her ear because of her nature of telling the truth and standing up and saying it like it is. And it's so blatant when you talk about these things to get labeled. That's one of the things they throw at you. You've got to be, a hate monger, a neo-Nazi, anti-Semite, Klansman type of thing. They love to throw these things out, and yet justice is never served by such things. This young man, whether he's Jewish or Mormon or Catholic or Buddhist, he's dead and doesn't deserve to die that way. Okay, justice needs to be served. Okay, that's my 2 cents on the subject, Alex.
I couldn't agree with you more. Looking forward to learning more as things develop. Major Burdock, your thoughts?
I thought it was really interesting, especially the part where she said, "Oh, well, you get your pin when you are elected to Congress, and you're just expected to be shooed into this certain area, this certain club. You got to be part of the club." And she's definitely not a joiner. She's got her own opinion, which is great. It's so refreshing to hear someone. I mean, despite where she started politically, as a Democrat, or she's a libertarian, or she's a part of the Green Party. Wow, you have to respect a woman that is so devoted to the ideas that she spoke about in the first hour. And who could really, come on, who could disagree with her logic? You really can't. It's just, all of it really makes sense. I gained a tremendous amount of respect.
The special interests, obviously, because they ran her out. She's sadly,
Her crime was trying to do her job in the interest of the people. And apparently that's a crime once you actually get the job. That's tragic.
And that's what's broken. See, that's what hit me so hard after the interview last night that I had a pretty sleepless night as I'm piecing this together, and I kept asking myself the question: if you don't make it happen, who will? Okay, and if not now, then when? We've got to do something. I can't sit back and see this thing just go down the toilet. As she said so eloquently too in the interview, there's going to come a time when there's going to be an American Spring. There has to be, because at some point, this house of cards is going to crumble. It's just not sustainable. It just flat out
I,
is not.
I think we've had many conversations on the show over the years where there's a certain argument that has a lot of weight to it that says it was designed to fall like a house of cards and crumble. Phoenix rising out of the ashes and so forth.
Yes, yeah,
Well, getting back to if not when, I'm talking about now. Let's the Goldwater is going to anything you write, True, we will publish. We will publish it uncensored. Uh, we are now simulcasting, which is incredible. So I want to thank the folks at Revolution Radio, and just this is I think this is action, what we're doing right now, because we're going to be reaching more people and be able to get more people who have better ideas than we do. So that's the whole point of this, and I'm just elated right now that we're able to do this at the moment.
Well, that's I got work to do this weekend for sure, and I don't know
You're
how long
here.
will yeah I'll be typing away, flashing away, and I'll put the word out. I do a ministry myself to prison inmates. We go in and so many of these inmates are just I get frustrated too at the prison system. There's so many nonviolent criminals in our penal system. It's sickening. It's sad that they're incarcerated not to be helped per se, but to be just given a scarlet letter stigmatized, and part of the system is these private for-profit prisons. That has to be addressed too. I mean, it's not right. I'm sorry.
Let them know that we've got a job for. Talk to somebody that when you next go, let them know that we've got a job for them over here as a writer. If you've got somebody that's an accomplished writer that can produce something that we want to publish, not want to, that is publishable, obviously, but let them know that we've got a job for them, and there's some more action there. So let's get a prison writer on staff.
We got some really interesting characters in the Utah State prison system. I gotta tell you, that we have some interesting characters. We do, and I'll put it out there because they do have some interesting insights as to what their views on life is. And I had one philosophical discussion with one inmate. I got to tell you, and his outlook is so incredible. He says it doesn't matter if I'm in behind this barbed wire fence or outside. There's prisons in our minds no matter where we are. And I think that's so apropos because I say vast majority of people who are so brainwashed, thinking that they have to go to a 9 to 5 job to make ends meet and pay the man, okay, pay the system. They're on a treadmill. Who's really in prison and who's not? I think we're all to some degree in a prison state. Okay, and yeah, it's an interesting philosophical discussion. Who's really free and who's really in prison, type of thing. It's a matter of your mind. Your mind has to go outside the boundaries, or you stay in the prison that you create in your own mind. Kind of like breaking the veils. So yeah, absolutely. We'll explore that. He might be a good candidate for to write.
What's the Goethe quote that none are more hopelessly enslaved than those who falsely believe they are free?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I keep going back to that movie. I think it's destined to be a classic with Michael McConaughey. He's played the role so very well. This Free State of Jones. I mean, here's these runaway slaves who are in a swamp, but they're free and they're loving it to the point where the one fellow named Moses, okay, it does such great work to let his people go, to free them, and then ends up being emasculated and hung, by these crackers, right? By the way, the term crackers come from the white crackers of the Deep South. It's because of the whip. The whips crack. They pop the whip. That's why they call them crackers. Just a little tidbit there, but yeah, it's something that even though this happened back 100 or so years ago, more than that, the battle's still raging today. It's the oligarchy versus the general population of people. Gaddafi had it right when, as a member of the Libyan military, peacefully walked into the oil executives' offices there and said, "Goodbye. You are no longer welcome here to rape our oil, to pull it out of. This is a natural resource." That's the first step he did, and basically took control with a bloodless coup, peaceful coup. Just sent the oil executives packing. They was just sucking the wealth of Libyan people out from underneath them. And you have to look at what happened there in Libya, the ideals that he set up a gold backed currency called the dinar, that he never would allow the banksters to come in with their usury. This is why the Mossad targeted him. These books, Ostrovsky's books, document so well how the Mossad set him up to be looked upon worldwide as the author of so much terrorism. Isn't that just the same mold they're using today? Got to fight the war on terror, right?
Yeah, the gold-backed currency is one of the primary reasons they're going after Iran currently.
Yeah, yeah. It's it's uh, it's a modus operandi that's they ought to change their tactics. I submit, and yeah, I gotta just again plug the station for those listeners who are with us with the Goldwater and the Simulcast. Yeah, the the station itself, nobody is paid to do anything on this show. Alex and I do not receive a nickel for any broadcast. The story behind the story is one of dozens of shows that are only able to survive on the air through donations from listeners. That's it. That's all that runs the station. So we just plug the station in that way. If you want to make a donation, that's fine. It's not mandatory, but subscribing to the archives is a great way to go. You get a lot of good content there that'll keep you busy and your mind spinning for days. Okay, so we do plug the station and hope that those new listeners that are on tonight maybe could see fit to do a little donation. That'll be helpful to the station. Alex, what do you think? What do you say?
Well, I'm impressed and excited about this new little project. I'm very looking forward to hearing from you over the weekend and beyond. I'm also hopeful that we can get Cynthia back. It seems like she's definitely a good candidate for joining us again. And hopefully this will uh, lead us to some other important people that we want to bring on the show. I'm hopeful we can continue to bring on more guests. And yes, folks, your donations go a long way to keeping us on the air and being able to bring you these special guests from way overseas, like Cynthia and Major Burdock, and all the many other special guests that have been brought on the show. So thank you all, and yeah, definitely check out those archives. That's a great way to get access to all of the previously recorded shows for a small monthly fee.
Yeah,
I wanted to because this is a simulcast and people are watching. I'm having our producers put on pictures of flamethrowers and waterfalls over our broadcast right now, which is going out live pretty much in every hole of the internet we can find. Uh, the archives are incredibly important to sustain Revolution Radio, and the donations are incredibly important because bandwidth costs money, and all of these people are doing this on their own time. I'm doing this on my own time at the moment. So we need to make sure that Revolution Radio stays afloat and has got a 200 horsepower engine behind it. So and a flamethrower. So the best step forward that I can take for anyone, just as anyone, is to, with what we're going to be talking about over the weekend, everything that you need hosted, no charge. Okay.
Wow, incredible.
No charge. And we're happy to have you, True. We are very, very happy to have you.
Well, it's my pleasure to network, and that's what it's all about. Like Cynthia said so very well, it's coming together, unity. I mean, it really is. It's got to happen. Nobody is greater or less than anybody else. Are we still online? I lost kind of an audio buzz there. There we go. We're back.
Yeah, we're here.
Okay. Yeah,
Fine, fine.
I wanted to share in the last little while the fellow that I've really grown to love and admire in a lot of ways, Mr. Jim Catlin. I mentioned him a lot of times on the show. I want to have him on as a guest because he's got such a timely message. This last Sunday, he happens to pastor this little non-denominational church in Brigham City that I go to. He shared with me his story, shared with the whole congregation his story when he worked as an engineer for Hewlett Packard, and he was started out there in your neck of the woods there, Alex, in Silicon Valley. But he told his very first. He's just new to the company. Hewlett Packard was seated at a new engineer welcome dinner, seated at the table with Mr. David Packard himself. And the story that he told was just an amazing glimpse and insight into the personality and character of Mr. Packard. And I wanted to kind of, because this dovetails so well with what Cynthia is talking about, the 11 simple rules that Mr. Packard had in the company, and it's kind of still there to this day. It's something that we can integrate into these platforms that we're talking about, and I want to just put it out there to share because it's timeless. It truly is. Okay, David Packard's 11 simple rules, as he calls them. Okay, let me just share number one, and this is the key one. He says, "Think first of the other fellow." Think about that. Think first of the other fellow. This is the foundation, the first requisite, David Packard said, for getting along with others, and it is the only one truly difficult accomplishment that you must make. If you gain this first one, the rest of these rules will be what he called a breeze. There's actually a book written called Bill and Dave. Dave Packard with Bill Hewlett, formed Hewlett Packard there in the Silicon Valley region of California. The second rule, build up the other person's sense of importance. When we make the other person seem less important, we frustrate one of his deepest urges. Allow him or her to feel equality or superiority, and we can easily get along with him or her. Simple. So it ties into number one, think first of the other fellow. Number three, respect the other man's personality rights. Respect is something sacred, the other fellow's right to be different from you. No two personalities are ever molded by precisely the same forces. And then he says, four, give sincere appreciation. If we think someone has done a thing well, we should never hesitate to let him know it. But in big letters, warning. This does not mean promiscuous use of obvious flattery. Flattery with most intelligent people gets exactly the reaction it deserves. Contempt for the egotistical phony who stoops to it. And Mr. Packard made it a rule that anybody caught using this type of flattery was summarily discharged from the company. They were fired. He didn't put up with it, period. It had to be sincere appreciation. And next he said, eliminate the negative. Criticism seldom does what its user intends, for it invariably causes resentment. The tiniest bit of disapproval can sometimes cause a resentment which will rankle to your disadvantage for years. Next one, avoid openly trying to reform people. Every man knows he is imperfect, but he doesn't want someone else trying to correct his faults. If you want to improve a person, help him to embrace a higher working goal, a standard, an ideal, and he will do his own making over, far more effectively than you can do it for him. Next, he says, try to understand the other person. How would you react to similar circumstances? When you begin to see the whys of him, you can't help but get along better with him. And then he says to do your best to check first impressions. He says, we are especially prone to dislike some people on first sight because of some vague resemblance or prejudice of which we are usually unaware. To someone else we have had reason in the past to dislike. Follow Abraham Lincoln's famous self-instruction quote, I do not like that man, therefore I shall get to know him better. Next is take care with the little details. Watch your smile, your tone of voice, how you use your eyes, the way you greet people, the use of nicknames and remembering faces, names, and dates. Little things add polish to your skill in dealing with people. Constantly, deliberately think of them until they become a natural part of your personality. And the 10th one, develop genuine interest in people. Got to have an interest in the other person and what's going on and making them tick. And the final one, rule number 11, simple rule, just says keep it up. That's all. Just keep it up. Keep at it. And this is what made Hewlett Packard such a remarkable company in the 1950s. Basically, set the stage for what is now the workforce ethics of Silicon Valley. And Jim Catlin was so eloquent in his honoring Mr. Packard and what an icon he was to work with. I just had to share that with you since you're there in the neighborhood, Alex, and so is Dominique.
No, that hits home because I actually had a friend who passed away. He was a billionaire who worked there, and that's where he made his fortune. And he was very closely ingrained by those principles. And in so many aspects of his life, I experienced them directly. So it's kind of neat to sort of hear them from the horse's mouth.
Yeah, it's what has to drive this whole thing because it goes back to what Cynthia was saying about having integrity and coming together. What she said was so good. How about the Christian identity movement, meeting with the Ku Klux Klan, meeting with the black leadership? I mean, there's central planks of commonality. They just really want much the same thing. They just want to be, to have the world a better place ultimately, and find the commonality. Maybe that's easier said than done. Maybe that's a Pollyanna type of thing. But you know what? David Packard and Bill Hewlett made it work.
They sure did. I have a long-standing memory of that company, and at one point working in a building right next to one of their campus facilities. So I used to own an HP Vectra back in the day. I'm sure Major Burdock is nodding. Yes, I remember that too.
Oh no, you didn't have the best one. I did. I was using cassette tapes, man. Well, actually, my dear friend, who I've done a lot of sailing with, and I don't know if you've had the pleasure of meeting uh, uh, Redfoot. I keep calling you Redfoot, Alex. Uh, he was back in the punch card days, so yeah, it's come a long ways. It's to the point where we need to regress back to a decent operating system that's secure, and decide whether or not we want all of these intrusions on our privacy.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's we mentioned Alex Jones, and I don't want to be negative or cast aspersions, but the reality is, I've been pointing out many times the connections with Alex Jones to Stratfor, strategic forecasting, as a Stratfor agent. They're headquartered there in Texas in Austin, and there was strong evidence posted from a whistleblower inside of AJ's organization showing that there was actual checks from strategic forecasting Stratfor to that were cashed by Alex's team there. So, what is strategic forecasting Stratfor is a Mossad Cyanim operation, folks. Isn't it amazing? I Joyce Riley, she's we had a discussion with this before. She's so ill, and I'm not sure exactly if she's still with us or not. But she hosts the Power Hour there on GCN, the same Genesis Communication Network that Alex started with, right? And she was just telling me about what happened with his divorce that was stunning. In the divorce hearing, his wife was basically trying to paint him as being unfit father. There was a really nasty custody battle for their children, and under oath, Alex testified, quote, "It's all just a show. I'm paid to put on a show. That's not who I really am." Talk about Hal Turner. I think he's worse than Hal Turner. I got to tell you. It just makes my blood boil, Alex.
I saw him hop offline. I'll pick it up from there. It's
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, he's it appears that he dropped offline. Sorry. The I'm also looking at our simulcast right now, so I have to tell you, I've taken some artistic. Actually, our folks in the studio have taken some artistic pleasure in putting video over our audio. So it's flamethrowers and waterfalls and reverse waterfalls. It's all quite adept to what we're talking about, which is fire and ice and battling something. And I have to keep going back to. I was really, really moved by what Cynthia McKinney was saying in the previous hour, that if you just have some common sense, you can probably find some ground somewhere, because we all have these different beliefs. Uh, you know, there's certain people that believe the Earth is flat. There's certain,
I happen to be one of those people, just so you know.
Hey,
he's back.
Online.
He's back. Hey,
he's back online.
I'll just say,
I happen to be, like, I'm a baller, and we get along. We're friends. We've been friends for a very, very long time. So there's no reason for us to hate each other.
It's an interesting discussion. Is all I can say about it, because I don't have an opinion one way or the other. I appreciate Edward Hendry's book and his comments on the subject. He's educated. He's an educated man and has a very great argument with it. And you'd have to travel everywhere. I'd love to ride the space shuttle. I really would. I'd like to go up there and see for myself without a convex window, perhaps, or a lens to look through, to see what it really looks like. I'd love that opportunity, but I don't know if that'll ever happen in my lifetime. You know, to see what space is really like. Do we really have planets out light years away? Is the sun really what we've been led to believe in the heliocentric model? You know, I got to tell you this much, as a baller, as a flat earther, whatever. This is an ongoing thing that we have to rely on. Who? The government once again, and NASA once again.
NASA.
I mean,
Never
That's
any
the
straight
most important thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the WHO. It's absolutely the WHO, Dr. True.
So I mean, do we really put our faith in these people, which are tied to some very unsavory characters? I say the question mark, as Edward Hendry says in his great book. Sorry, I don't trust NASA, and here's the evidence of why I feel this way. And it's a great read for people. I gave a copy of his book to Jim Catlin, who I consider one of the smartest men I've ever had the privilege of knowing and talking with, and to ask his opinion. He just looks at me and grins. He says, does it matter? I said, well, in a way it does, Jim, because, if like Henry makes the case, if you buy into NASA's big lie, they can pretty much sell you anything. And he says, I get that, but whether the earth is flat or whether it's round, I says, I know one thing, and that is, there is a creator, and I have a relationship with that creator, and I know that to be true, and that's the anchor. And so what else matters? We can't worry about it too much and fight about it. And that goes back to David Packard again. He respects the opinion of those who would write about it and share it. And if nothing else, guess what? It gets you to think, doesn't it? It gets you to have your mind go outside the boundaries and color outside the lines. And that's never a bad thing. Some people say it's craziness, but I say no, it's a good thing to think.
Absolutely. Why should you be detracted from thinking the moment that happens? I don't. I did one thing, Dr. True, and I have this. I have a couple of Kindles, and I read consecutively, side by side, 1984, along with all of the other books that are talking about kind of the Orwellian future. And there's so much of that, and the whole it all ties back to not being able to express your opinion. I want to thank you for having me on the show, Dr. True, and all of our resources here at the Goldwater are available to you.
Thank you, Major Burdock. Thank you, Alex Studer. We're out of time. It's been a great hour. Alex, God bless you, sir. We'll talk later. We'll have you back next week, Major Burdock. Thanks for the simulcast. We appreciate the new listeners. Be well and be safe. Talk later. Okay, we're off.